There we go. Hi guys, Mrs. Chester here on Lincoln's actual birthday, Monday, February the 12th. Yeah, back in the day, we used to both get Washington's birthday and Lincoln's birthday off, and now we get President's Day, but it just happens to be my regular day off. As I was going through my stuff, I came across a postcard for the next Fest for Beatles Fans, otherwise known as Beatlefest. And I realized I'd never made a video about the Fest for Beatles Fans, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's when Beatles fanatics, many of whom probably weren't even around when the Beatles were in their heyday, gather for 2 or 3 days to have a total Beatlefest. And something like Beatles songs, which I grew up with, they actually broke up when I was in high school. You don't remember these things go into your lucid brain, but then when you get to a place like this where you're continuously bombarded by the hundreds and hundreds of songs the Beatles did and covers, it's quite an experience, and I recommend it to anybody who hasn't gone. I've actually been twice, but I keep thinking I've been there 3 times. I don't know why that is. First time I went to it when it was in New Jersey, and it was a hellish trip because my friend and I did not know the PATH trains, and it happened also to be on a St. Patrick's Day, a bitterly cold day, and by the time we got back to the train station, there was like nobody there. It was like the Langoliers. I ended up talking to some guy who had another person's vomit crusted onto his shirt. It was like a hellish trip, but it was great. The show itself was great. It runs for like 3 days. And it's not cheap. And no, you never see any Beatles. They have this childish naivete that, oh, maybe Paul will show. No, the Beatles never show up at these things. Why should they? But you will get people who are marginally involved with the Beatles. Like one of the years I went, that woman whose name I forgot, who was involved with everybody. Is it Patty Harrison? Anyone who's like the least bit involved with the Beatles may end up at one of these shows. And the year I went to New Jersey, they actually had Hurricane Smith, who was absolutely fabulous. He evidently worked with the Beatles for 8 minutes at one point. And every year you get this guy called Mark Hudson. He puts color in his beard and he does goofy things on Ringo, haha. And each year, of course, there are fewer and fewer guests available. I remember when I went that year in Jersey, it's like, and now the surviving members of the Quarrymen. And I'm reading who's on this year's guest list. And we have Peter Asher. Peter, because Gordon is dead. And we have Jeremy, because, who is he with? Chad, because Chad is dead. And we have this terrible DJ from Q104 who shows up every year, and he's really, I don't even think he realizes how bad he is, but he always shows up to be the MC. And this year they actually have the Roy Orbison's kids. They have Birds of Paradox. That might be interesting. The year I went, they had members of Wings. So in other words, you're going to get marginal Beatles involvement in a lot of this stuff. And they do have art, and they do have vendors and all that. If you've never been to one of these things, and this is the only fan thing I've ever been to in my life because I have coworkers who are very into it, I would suggest you do it, maybe just for one day, just to see what kind of people are still hanging on to this music. When I went to New York, they had a fest a couple years ago in the city. I saw Neil Innes, and Neil Innes is a prize. He was like the best part of the show, but as the people involved with the Beatles dwindle in number and the fans age out, you go a couple of times and then what do you see? Especially if I don't understand why people want to stay for 3 days. I mean, I have a friend this is like her yearly thing, and even she's given up on it because it runs into a lot of money to not see the Beatles. Let me see what else I can remember about this. Beatles yoga, Beatles poetry jam, Beatles trivia, name that tune. Live Beatles music, Beatles Marketplace. The Beatles Marketplace is just a mess. They have people making trash bag holders out of yellow submarine fabric. It's nothing that I think that anybody would want. And then of course every year you get a T-shirt, and they're like, "What's this year's T-shirt design going to be like?" And again, my friend who goes every year, I don't even know why she's into it because she's younger than me, and she had to have been about 14, no, 12 when the Beatles broke up, but a friend of hers is, and every year she has these shirts, and you get the shirt that says "Imagine all this" and da 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 da. So it's a thing I've done. So the Fest for Beatles fans, I do recommend it. I do recommend it for, like I said, anyone who wants to see what the Beatles fan base is composed of today. I know Generation XYZ millennials have absolutely no interest in them anymore. But it's a good trip. Maybe you can meet friends of your grandparents there. That's all. That's all. I'm not putting it down. I'm not putting it down. Again, it depends on the year you go. The year I went where I saw Linus Donovan was also there, and that was worthwhile. So you do have icons from the '60s showing up, and it's a good way to tack on to these things before they vanish into the ether. Wow, over 6 minutes on this video. Enjoy the rest of your day.